In the last breath of daylight, when the desert turns cruel and quiet, a man rode into a moment that would stain the land with blood. What Caleb Horn found that evening was not just a girl hanging from a tree. It was a declaration of war. Stay with me, friend, because the second Caleb cut that rope, the territory decided he had to die. And before we go on, tell us where you're listening from and what you think Caleb should have done. Your voice matters here. The winter sun was sinking low over the badlands of Sierra Rojo, flattening itself into the horizon like a dying ember pressed into sand. Cold crept in early that year, not the gentle kind, but the sharp, biting cold that claws through wool, through bone, through resolve. Caleb Horn urged his bay gelding, Ashwood, along the cracked trail leading back to his spread. He was late. Fence line trouble had dragged him farther than planned. Caleb was a man carved by distance, tall, quiet, the kind who spoke more to horses than people. His ranch, Crow's Rest, sat miles from the nearest settlement, far from the hopeful lies of Dustfall Crossing, where men drank bad whiskey and talked about land they hadn't earned. That's when he saw it, a shape, wrong against the land, still, suspended. Caleb slowed Ashwood to a halt. The cottonwood stood alone, old, bent, hollowed by wind. Locals called it the Whispering Tree, because when the wind passed through its dead limbs, it sounded like voices that never finished speaking. Something hung from one of those limbs. Caleb dismounted. His boots crunched on frozen soil as his hand drifted, not in panic, but instinct, to the grip of his revolver. Closer, closer. The shape resolved into a young woman, her wrists bound, her body lifted just enough that her toes scraped the earth when the wind swayed her. She was alive, barely. Her skin, sun-warmed copper dulled by cold, told him instantly who she was. Apache. Her head lolled forward, black hair tangled and stiff with frost. Her breath came in shallow, broken clouds, and above her, nailed into the tree, was a plank of raw wood. Caleb reached up and read the words burned deep into it, darkened with dried blood and desert grit. This is the price of trespass. No name, no law, just hate pretending to be justice. Caleb ripped the board free. It cracked loud in the silence. He dropped it into the dirt like trash. Then he pulled his knife. "Hold on," he said, not gently, not cruelly, just steady. One clean slice. The rope gave way. The girl collapsed into the dust with a sound like a broken breath. Caleb caught her before she hit hard. She weighed nothing. Fear and bone and cold. He lifted her, laid her across Ashwood's saddle, and turned back toward Crow's Rest, knowing even then that no good deed in this land went unpunished. If this story already has your heart racing, hit subscribe, partner. These Western legends live because you keep them alive. Caleb worked through the night. Fire first, then water, then care. He cleaned the rope burns with boiled yucca and creek water, dressed the gash on her temple, wrapped her in his heaviest blankets. She flinched at every touch, eyes wide, feral, watching for betrayal. He didn't speak much, didn't need to. The fire spoke, the shelter spoke. 2 days passed like that. On the third morning, as light cracked through the frost-covered window, she finally spoke. Why? Caleb didn't look up from oiling his rifle. "Because no one deserves that," he said. She studied him. "My name is Ayanna," she whispered. Snow came the following week, thin, quiet, dangerous. Ayanna grew stronger, restless. Before dawn one morning, Caleb watched her kneel in the snow and draw symbols with a broken twig, circles, lines, teeth like mountains, a marker, a message. "She will know," Ayanna said softly. My people. Her voice cracked when she spoke of burned camps, of miners, of soldiers paid in silver to erase history. They wanted me to disappear, she said. Caleb placed a hand on her shoulder. The desert listened. Fate doesn't wait. 3 nights later, fever took Caleb. Hard. Ayanna became something else then. Not a victim, not a guest, a guardian. She kept him alive with herbs and willpower, and when riders came, men with badges and lies and wanted posters, Caleb lied for her without hesitation. I've seen no one, he said, and that lie drew a line in blood. They came again, this time with company guns, this time with intent. Caleb stood on his porch, revolver steady. You step inside, he said, and only one of us walks away. They backed down, but not forever. That night, Caleb packed. We ride, he told her, to your valley. The ambush came at dawn. Gunfire, blood, pain. Ayanna dragged him through stone and shadow, through a canyon that swallowed sound. For 2 days she led. For 2 nights she prayed. And when they reached the hidden valley, when her people saw the white rancher bleeding for one of their own, history shifted. Ayanna cut the bullet from Caleb's shoulder herself. He screamed, then lived. Days later, by the river, she held his hand. You didn't save me, she said. You chose me. The desert held its breath. Stay, she whispered. And for the first time in his life, Caleb Horn did. Caleb Horn woke to the sound of water. Not the angry rush of a flash flood, but the steady, living murmur of a river that had survived every attempt to tame it. Pain came next, a deep, pulsing heat in his shoulder, stitched tight and packed with something sharp-smelling and clean. He tried to sit up. A firm hand stopped him. Don't, Ayanna said. Her voice had changed. It wasn't the frightened whisper from the rope and the tree. It wasn't the careful silence of a hunted girl. This voice belonged to a woman who had crossed back into her people's shadow and found her spine again. You were loud, she added, almost smiling. But you lived. Caleb let his head fall back. Figures, he muttered. Always been hard to get rid of. She snorted despite herself. The lodge around them was low and warm, built from earth and timber, the air heavy with sage smoke. Shadows moved beyond the woven walls. Voices murmured, careful, guarded. They argue, Ayanna said quietly, following his gaze. About you. Can't blame 'em, she shook her head. They fear what follows you, not you. That landed heavier. Outside, the twin serpent river bent through the valley like a living thing, green and defiant in the red stone cradle of the canyon. This place was hidden by design, a wound in the land that had healed itself by staying unseen. And now, Caleb Horn had bled into it. The elders came at dusk. 3 men, 1 woman. Faces weathered by sun, wind, and remembering too much. They stood in a half-circle while Ayanna translated. He saved me, she said first. He bled for me. He brought me home. The oldest elder, his hair white as ash, studied Caleb with eyes that missed nothing. The silver men will not stop, he said. They believe this valley already belongs to them. Caleb pushed himself upright despite the pain. They won't stop anywhere, he said, because no one ever makes them. Silence stretched. The woman elder tilted her head. You would fight them? Caleb met her gaze. I would slow them, he said honestly, and I would make the cost high enough that they remember it. Ayanna's jaw tightened. The old man nodded once. Then you are not our enemy. Not a welcome. Not yet, but not a death sentence either. 3 days later, the first scout didn't come back. The second returned with a bullet crease across his hat brim and terror in his eyes. "They are mapping the canyon mouths," he said, "marking trails, measuring distance." Caleb sat outside, cleaning his Winchester slowly. "They're planning a sweep," he said. "Standard company tactic, push from 3 sides, burn what won't bend." Ayanna crouched beside him. "Can you stop them?" Caleb paused. Then, "No," she swallowed. "But," he added, "we can make them think twice about how." They moved at night. Small groups, quiet feet, no fires. Caleb taught the young men how to read sign backward, how to erase presence instead of leaving it, how to lay false trails, how to let the land do half the killing. Ayanna moved among them like smoke, translating, steadying, reminding. She wasn't a chief's daughter out here. She was a bridge. The first blood spilled at Red Needle Pass, a narrow throat of stone where sound bounced and horses hated to tread. 3 company riders entered, only one left. He rode hard, face gray, hands shaking, straight back to Dustfall Crossing. And when he spoke, he didn't talk about savages or thieves. He talked about a rancher with a scarred shoulder who never missed. "If you're still with us, partner, drop a comment and tell us what you do in Caleb's boots. And don't forget to share this story with someone who loves a hard Western legend." The retaliation came swift, too swift. Smoke rose from the far grazing grounds. Shots echoed near the southern ravines. They weren't searching anymore. They were punishing. Ayanna found Caleb by the river at dawn, fists clenched. "They burned the winter herd camp," she said. 2 boys wounded. Caleb's jaw set. "That's the signal," he said. "They want us to break cover. And if we don't, they'll keep burning until we do." Ayanna looked at the water, then at him. "Then we choose where," she said. He smiled grimly. "Exactly." They chose Ironmouth Gulch, a place the company men would never expect resistance, wide enough for numbers, narrow enough for disaster. Caleb set the trap with patience, learned from years of solitude. Deadfall, crossfire points, escape routes. He didn't plan a massacre. He planned a lesson. The company arrived at noon. 15 men, 2 wagons, confidence riding shotgun. Their leader, clean coat, city boots, raised a hand. "Come out," he called. "This doesn't have to get ugly." Caleb stepped into view, rifle resting easy. "It already is," he said. The first shot came from the company side. The last did not. When it ended, Ironmouth Gulch earned its name. That night, the elders sat again. This time, closer. "You bring fire," the old man said. Caleb nodded. "They brought it first." The woman elder studied Ayanna, then him. "You stay," she said. "But understand this. If you stay, you're no longer passing through." Ayanna reached for Caleb's hand. He squeezed back. "I figured," he said. Far away, in a room full of maps and money, men decided Caleb Horn was no longer a problem. He was a message, and messages, they believed, could be erased. The valley didn't sleep that night. Even the river seemed to move slower, as if listening. Caleb sat on a flat stone near the fire, cleaning his revolver for the 3rd time, not because it needed it, but because his hands needed something steady to do. Ayanna stood a few paces away, staring toward the canyon mouth. "They'll come bigger this time," she said. Caleb nodded. "They always do when pride gets wounded." She turned to him. "And when money gets embarrassed?" That earned a tight smile. Silver had bought guns. Guns had bought graves. And now Silver wanted its respect back. Before dawn, a runner arrived, barefoot, bleeding. "They found the North Trail," he gasped. "Someone showed them." The words hit harder than any bullet. Betrayal. The elders gathered quickly, voices low, sharp, urgent. Caleb didn't speak until the shouting crested. "They won't need a guide if they already know," he said. "Someone's been talking for a while." Eyes shifted. Suspicion settled like dust after a stampede. Ayanna scanned the circle, her heart sinking. Fear didn't come from the company men anymore. It came from within. They didn't have long. By mid-morning, smoke rose from the outer ridge, signal fires. Too organized to be scouts. Caleb climbed a lookout rock, spyglass pressed to his eye. What he saw made his jaw tighten. Not 15, not 30. Wagons, rifles, men hired to make an example. And at their center, a man in a long coat, riding slow, a strategist. "They brought a commander," Caleb said when he climbed down. "This isn't punishment anymore. This is erasure." The elders exchanged grim looks. The old woman spoke. "Then we scatter." Ayanna stepped forward. "No." All eyes turned. "If we scatter, they burn what's left," she said. "They poison the river. They hunt us one by one." Caleb watched her carefully. "And if we stay," she continued, "we stand together, here, where the land protects us." Silence. Then the old man nodded once. "The daughter of Kiona speaks with a steady tongue." Decision made. They fortified fast. Women moved children and elders into hidden crevices along the river bend. Young men took rifles and bows, hands shaking but eyes fierce. Caleb walked the line, adjusting positions, murmuring instructions. When he reached Ayanna, he stopped. "This gets ugly," he said quietly. "If it turns bad—" "I know," she said, "and I won't run." He searched her face, found no fear, only resolve. The company attacked at noon. Gunfire cracked like thunder trapped between canyon walls. Dust exploded, stone chipped, men shouted. Caleb fired slow and precise, each shot chosen. One man fell, then another. But numbers push harder than courage. They advanced in waves, forcing the defenders back step by step. Ayanna worked behind the line, reloading rifles, binding wounds, shouting warnings in both languages. Then, a scream. From the riverside. Too close. Caleb spun, smoke, chaos, and through it a familiar figure running the wrong way. Tomas, a young man from the outer camp, holding a company pistol, leading 3 soldiers straight toward the hidden elders. Betrayal confirmed. Caleb didn't hesitate. One shot. Tomas fell into the dust, betrayal dying with him. The soldiers froze, just long enough. Arrows flew. The river ran red. The commander in the long coat watched it all from the ridge. He smiled, then raised his hand. A whistle shrieked through the air. From behind the western rocks, the cannon spoke. The explosion tore the earth open. Shockwave, fire, stone raining like judgment. Caleb was thrown hard, vision flashing white. When he came back, his ears rang, and his mouth tasted like blood. He pushed himself up. "Ayanna!" he shouted. No answer. Panic, sharp and sudden, cut through him deeper than the wound in his shoulder ever had. He stumbled through smoke and debris. Found her near the riverbank, pinned by fallen timber. Alive. Barely. Her leg twisted wrong. She was biting her lip to keep from screaming. Caleb dropped to his knees. "I've got you," he said, voice shaking now despite himself. She grabbed his coat. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Even if they take me, don't stop." He looked at her, really looked, and understood. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was about ending it. He stood, slowly, deliberately, stepped into the open. The commander saw him. "So," the man called, amused, "you're the rancher." Caleb wiped blood from his mouth. "You brought a cannon to a land that already hates you," he said. "That's a mistake." The commander laughed. "This land belongs to whoever can afford it." Caleb raised his rifle. "Then you've been underpaying." The shot rang out. The commander fell backward off his horse, surprise frozen on his face. The company line broke. Men scattered. Some ran, some died. The rest surrendered to the canyon they should have respected. Silence returned slowly, broken only by moans, and the river. Caleb went back to Ayanna, lifted her gently. "You stayed," she said weakly. "Always," he answered. That night, fires burned, but not in fear, in mourning, and in resolve. The elders spoke again. This time their words were clear. "You are bound to us now," the old man said to Caleb. "Not by blood, but by choice." Ayanna took his hand, squeezed. Far away, in Dustfall Crossing, telegrams were sent, orders rewritten. The Silver Men learned a truth they hated. Some land cannot be bought, and some wars don't end when the guns go quiet. If this story has you hooked, partner, like, subscribe, and leave a comment right now. Tell us where you're listening from and what you think should happen next. Your support keeps these legends alive. The valley smelled of smoke and iron. Morning came slow, as if the sun itself wasn't sure it wanted to look at what had been done. Caleb sat beside Ayanna through the night, his coat wrapped around her, his hands stained with blood that wasn't all his. The healer women worked carefully, straightening her leg, binding it with splints carved from river willow. "She will walk," one finally said, "but not without pain." Ayanna smiled faintly. "Pain reminds us we lived." Caleb let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They buried the dead at dawn. Apache and rancher alike. No speeches, no flags. Just stones stacked carefully, names spoken aloud so the wind could learn them. When it was done, the elders gathered for the last time beneath the cottonwoods by the river. "The Silver Men will return," one said. "Perhaps not tomorrow, perhaps not next season, but they will come." Caleb nodded. "I know." The old woman studied him. "And you?" "I won't run," he said, "but I won't draw fire here again either." Ayanna turned to him sharply. "What are you saying?" Caleb took her hands, gentle but firm. "I was a target before I found you," he said. "Now I'm a reason. If I stay, they keep coming." Silence stretched thin. "You will leave me?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "No, I'll leave with you." The elders murmured. "To Crow's Rest," Caleb continued. "My land, my name. Let them come for me there, where the fight won't burn your people again." The old man nodded slowly. "You offer yourself as the shield." Caleb met his eyes. "I always have." They left the valley 3 days later, not in secret, not in fear. Ayanna rode beside Caleb, leg bound tight, posture proud despite the pain. Behind them, a small escort followed to the canyon mouth, stopping where the land bent back into shadow. Ayanna dismounted. She embraced each elder. Then she turned to face the valley one last time. "I will return," she said softly, "but not hunted." The river answered for them all. Crow's Rest looked smaller than Caleb remembered, lonelier, but it stood. The whispering tree still watched the trail, its branches creaking in the wind. Ayanna looked at it and shivered. "That is where they tried to erase me," she said. Caleb wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "They failed." Weeks passed, then months. Winter loosened its grip. Caleb rebuilt fences. Ayanna planted near the creek, coaxing green life from stubborn soil. Word spread, quietly at first. The rancher who stood up to the companies, the Apache woman who walked beside him, unbowed. Some neighbors avoided them. Others brought supplies, nodding once, saying nothing. And the companies? They waited. The final move came in summer, not with guns, with paper, a court order, a land seizure, soldiers in clean uniforms. Caleb stood on his porch, Ayanna at his side. The officer cleared his throat. By order of the territorial authority, Ayanna stepped forward. She held out a bundle of documents, sealed and signed. Treaty records, burial ground maps, witness statements, her father's work, preserved, protected. "This land borders ours," she said calmly. "Your claim crosses treaty lines." The officer read, sweat beaded. He looked up, voice tight. "This complicates things." Caleb smiled, slow and sharp. "Funny thing about lines, they cut both ways." The soldiers mounted up. The dust settled. And just like that, the war ended not with gunfire, but with truth. Years later, travelers still pass the Whispering Tree. They say if you stop there at dusk, you can feel something watching, not angry, not sad, resolute. They say a rancher once cut down a girl meant to die. They say that act cost him everything and gave him more than he ever imagined. Before we end, partner, tell us where you're listening from and what part of this story stayed with you the most. If you believe stories like this deserve to live on, subscribe, like, and share this legend with someone who loves the Old West, because the desert remembers. And now, so do you.